Hi everyone and welcome back. I hope that you guys are feeling so great today. I'm really excited to be coming on and talking on my YouTube channel today about Neptune Retrograde and sort of about some of the bigger ideas around Neptune really getting far in its transit in Pisces. So yes, I'm talking about transiting Neptune and how that's going to be affecting us certainly for the rest of 2020, as it is retrograde from the time of June 23rd until November 28th of 2020. And I've been making videos about pretty much all of the major retrogrades this year. I've talked about Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, also Mars as well in their retrograde cycles. And I will link those videos below if you haven't been able to catch up with that content yet, because we've been talking very seriously about many of the retrogrades happening this year because there are so many of them. The outer planets go retrograde once per year, but we've also had Mars, which has a bit of a different retrograde cycle. So it's a very retrograde year, as many of us can feel in 2020. But before we get too strongly into the topic, thank you guys so much for being here. If you are not catching the live premieres, they're every week at 6 p.m. Pacific time on Fridays. So be sure to come and say hi and enjoy our very lemon-centric community. I suppose that the lemon has become our sort of the fruit of our fandom per se. So why not grab some lemon water and hydrate yourself throughout this video, because Neptune is the ruler of hydration as well, and it is the most watery planet in our solar system. It is the ruler of Pisces. It is transiting through Pisces, so I hope that we're all feeling hydrated, because Neptune retrograde is more likely to create dehydration. It's just a sort of simple aspect of that transit. Kind of like Mercury retrograde can cause issues with communication and technology. Neptune retrograde can cause issues with hydration, issues with the pH balance, issues with emotional health, and different psychological factors as well. So I've made a brief outline about Neptune retrograde, which I am just looking to right now. And the first, I'll talk about some of the collective general messages. And then I'm going to speak a little bit about this transit in every single house, just to cover even more bases this time, because I feel like this transit is kind of a bit of a huge void creator. So whichever house it's transiting, it's going to really sort of activate that house in a very deep and subconscious way, perhaps. So we'll talk about it through every single house as well. But to speak about it generally, so let's talk a little bit about our artistic development. So one of the reasons I wanted to make this video, I don't always make videos about every single outer planet retrograde. It's looking like I'm going to this year because they're all so spectacular. But I don't always make videos about Neptune or Uranus retrograde because they're kind of out of orb with a lot of the other planets. So I just honestly don't have time all the time to talk about every single movement of them. But I wanted, this transit really struck me because it's at 20 degrees, okay? Neptune's at 20 degrees right now, which means that it has moved toward the third decan of Pisces. So it's finally getting into the most mature energy and the most mature part of Pisces, the most elderly part of the zodiac, actually. This is the most mature, most ancient part of the zodiac that Neptune is now transiting and going retrograde through. And one of the reasons that this particular retrograde cycle of Neptune is so important is because it retrogrades back and it reintroduces us back towards the second decan of Pisces. And that gives us an opportunity to really set the stage and to really facilitate the right structure to move into some of the most sort of ancient aspects of our own soul energy, and to channel that or prepare to channel that in a way that we feel congruent with the purpose of our souls. It's a very soul-oriented energy, this Neptune in Pisces. It's a very soul-loving energy, soul-nurturing energy. I think that this transit of Pisces over about the last, 8 years transit of Neptune in Pisces, it has really made us much more concerned with our own authenticity. It has created much less space to be striving toward things which are other people's dreams, other people's goals, other people's destinies, and it's really made us feel uncomfortable with anything in our lives that are not us, or not a part of our own soul's energy. So as it retrogrades back away from the third decan, we have an opportunity for the rest of this year of 2020 to actually pivot a bit and understand more clearly what the essence of our own soul is, and what the essence of our own purpose and our own dreams are. So it's like super, super spiritual stuff, okay? Some of these other transits that we're having this year, which I'll link below in the description box: Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto in Capricorn, also in the third decan of Capricorn, creating a sextile angle to this actually. That is about real life, okay? That is about very physical, very tangible, status-oriented situations, structure-oriented things, control orientation, government orientation, all of that kind of stuff. Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto in Capricorn. However, Neptune here in Pisces is not about that. It's much more evolved away from those features of control and those features of dominance as well. So what we see with this retrograde of Neptune in Pisces is discomfort, yes, with our current present. I can see that for a lot of people, where we kind of feel like, okay, I've been doing things over and over again. I've been in the same job for a long time, as many of us with these Capricorn transits have been doing the same thing for a long time. We've been repetitive. We've been, seeing every single side of those transits and those experiences. And as Neptune goes retrograde, we'll see anything that's not really for us, or not really meant for our progress, so much more clearly. So if you've been confused, or if you've been unclear about, is this the right path for me? Is this the right field for me? Is this the right output for my energy? That's going to become really clear from June to November of 2020. So to really facilitate this transit well, we can start it with the intention of saying, okay, I'm prepared to see the aspects of my life that are not for me, the aspects of my life that have been imposed on me by other people, and that I might have kind of tricked myself or convinced myself into thinking are right for me, but are not. And now I set the intention to see and be able to progress into the more congruent and authentic paths ahead. There's a great kind of pivot moment there, where we have a very sturdy bridge with the Capricorn energy, a very sturdy infrastructure to move or transcend into a much more authentic and relevant to our soul's path, okay? Because I'm not kidding you guys. So Neptune takes a very long time to go around the sun. It is a far outer planet. It actually takes 165 years for Neptune to orbit the sun. So this isn't one of those transits, Neptune in the last decan of Pisces, that some people even see in their entire lives, Neptune rules the sign of Pisces. So this period of about 13 years that we have of Neptune being strongly in Pisces, it is not something that every human even gets to see, Neptune being in its home sign. And what I'm trying to say is this isn't just something that we have all the time. This type of spiritual capability, this type of soul essence, motivation and connectivity is not something that is always available to humanity. That's why we actually, as humanity, have quite a lot more potential to find ourselves in better circumstances, in more connective areas, in more accessible reaches, is because of Neptune in Pisces. Now, it is also a very eroding energy. So we have to be careful, especially as it goes retrograde over these next few months. What do we break down? What do we erode? What do we choose not to maintain? What do we choose not to look at during this time? What do we choose to ignore? Okay. What do we choose to be blind towards? What do we shield ourselves from. It's kind of very Two of Swords energy, that some people who have a type of mentality that is very picky, like a very picky mentality, you know, Virgo Pisces axis, people who are very maybe compulsive about certain standards in their lives, or very just very a lot of nitpicking energy does not do well with this transit, because as Neptune goes retrograde in Pisces, it actually becomes a bit of a Virgo type of energy, where there can be like an obsessive compulsion for sure over the next few months. So if you've ever struggled with obsessive compulsive disorder, if you've ever had any type of mental unwellness, any type of, because everybody does to some degree, but what a great time for therapy. Okay, what a great time, an important time for psychological evaluation for some people. I can see also that those types of things can be disordered though as well. And obviously I'm not a doctor, and I cannot advise on any course of, psychological healing. But what I can say as an astrologer is that now is a time that you need to really get your psychology in order. Okay, it's great to set an intention to finally get yourself connected to the more essential aspects of yourself, and anything that's blocking that, any types of illusions of grandeur, any types of manic depression, any of those things that we can start to identify in ourselves. And how can we identify that something's amiss? So, I mean, it's basically any type of consistent discomfort that doesn't necessarily have a stimulus. That is a sign that something is amiss. And you have to really be able to kind of grow up with this transit too. That's echoed across the zodiac, with all the Capricorn placements too, all the Pisces placements, Jupiter and Saturn, then eventually moving towards Aquarius and Pluto as well. Getting very, very mature. Okay, very mature. Humanity is needing to become. So good budgeting. Okay, watch out for any types of frivolous spending. We have Mars in Aries, and then mixing that with Neptune and Pisces, we can like burn or dissolve money away really easily. We can also forget about our boundaries. We can forget about how much of ourselves we're exposing or leaving vulnerable if we're not careful. So really tidying things up, really getting everything in order. We've been talking about that since like 2018, but especially now as Neptune goes retrograde. You could actually look back to 2019 when it went retrograde last time, which I think I have a video on actually. That would have been sometime around the summer of 2019, but I'll link it below. Maybe look back to that video, or look back to that time at least, and understand what you were going through then. I bet that there could be something that was kind of torn open, or something that was exposed or left vulnerable that needs to be tied up and needs to be fixed during this transit of Neptune retrograde in Pisces. So what I want to talk about next with Neptune retrograde in Pisces as a general collective message is the blurring of identity, okay? I think that this is definitely an identity crisis for a lot of people. And by the time that Neptune goes direct at the end of November, early December of 2020, that it will be very imperative to get very clear on the identity. And it's not about pigeonholing yourself into an identity. It's not about setting up some kind of rigid and breathless identity, because that's kind of what we want. I feel culturally that has become quite good, where people have like this one identity, people have this like one self-branded idea of themselves that is like very what do I want to say, it has no lighting, it has no it's very rigid and two-dimensional. So something really cool about this transit is we can use this time to understand the complexity of an identity, to understand the shadows and shades of an identity, and to maybe even transform our concept of identity as a species in the first place. So humanity's concept of identity could really evolve, maybe not during this retrograde, but hopefully by the end of Neptune and Pisces, and it will inevitably by the end of Neptune and Pisces. So, when the year 2024 comes, when Neptune moves into Aries, understand that by then, it sounds like a long time away, that's 4 years away, the concept of identity, okay, the concept of who I am in comparison to others, or not even necessarily in comparison, but where I fall in the spectrum of humanity, all of that conceptualization will have shifted by then. And this retrograde cycle is one of a few that Neptune has that really facilitate that progression. So understanding that, now that Neptune has actually gotten as far as it has through Pisces, we can kind of understand a little bit more through the idea of the next 4 years where we're ending up a little bit more, okay? So the blurry identity that you can identify now should really start to, what do I want to say, eclipse. The blurry identity should start to eclipse any of the fears that you have, because there's an option, there's a flexibility with it. And Neptune in Pisces wants a more flexible sense of identity, okay? It doesn't want a cutout. It doesn't want something that's inauthentic as an identity. So like a brand becoming an identity, I work at the bank and I am the banker identity. I am the entrepreneur and I have different businesses. I am the entrepreneur identity. I am the doctor and I work, all week and I make a lot of money and I don't have time to be with my family, but I'm the doctor and everyone asks me medical questions. I am the doctor identity, things like this, where our profession or where our physical conceptualizations predate us. Neptune in Pisces seeks to erode those types of philosophies, okay? So change in philosophy, change in conceptualization of humanity, where it's not so much maybe our profession that predates us, but it more is our empathy or our ability to slot ourselves into the vision of others, okay? That is more so how identity expands at this time, and that'll change up when Neptune goes into Aries, and it'll become much more like what I do, and not with professions, but how I energize, how I am strong, how I pioneer new paths and new frontiers in 2024 and onwards. But we're not there yet, okay? And I think that a lot of people might be feeling that early, and this Neptune retrograde in Pisces will kind of slap that on the wrist a little bit, where we might be trying to pioneer too hard, or we might be trying to, take the physical turf or the physical plane and, build that up in some kind of odd way, because that's tempting with the Capricorn energy. So like architecture and building and houses and things like that, money. Whereas Neptune Pisces is not really about that. It is in a different way, but it's about the empathy. It's about the emotional energies. It's about being the right thing for someone else. And in that way, it can become a bit vampiric as well. So we've got to watch out also for the energy vampires that are in our lives, okay? The emotional cost of certain scenarios can become too high with Neptune, with this advanced Neptune retrograde in Pisces. Beware of the emotional cost of a certain profession or a certain commitment or a certain relationship. It's very high emotional costs that we have for pretty much everything that we don't have context with right now. And even the things that we have context with, so long-running relationships, can now become identified as way too emotionally domineering or way too just emotionally expensive. So with this sort of blurring of identity and understanding the emotional cost of certain scenarios, we have also the need to create a healing space, okay, with this Neptune retrograde. So healing spaces, your house, okay, your residence. It's not about it being the most expensive. It's not about it being the best floors or the best walls or the best, that's great. And especially if you have the budget, like you've done something really well, if you can afford a really nice house right now or something, that would be a great sign with the Capricorn transit, as long as you're not over leveraging yourself. To have a nice house or to invest in a house could be incredible right now, just to have a healing space. But if the budget is not there, it's fine. There are small things that you can do to really facilitate a better sense of healing space right now. And it has to be created throughout this time of June to November. There has to be a very nice solitary healing space available. So if we accidentally do go emotionally overboard, or if we do find ourselves in some kind of commitment or some kind of contract that really is emotionally expensive, we can rejuvenate, okay? Try to not place too many limitations on like sleep, for example. And if you're in a contract of time where you're maybe like, you're going to be up every single day at 6:30 in the morning and doing all these different things, like you have to then really go Virgo with it. And you have to be like a Virgo, and you have to make sure that you're getting enough sleep, because sleep, any type of sleep deprivation or self-punishment through insomnia, watch out for that. Also just in general, like insomnia through too much caffeine consumption, or through an overactive mind, or through hypersomnia as well. This can really aggravate certain emotional conditions with a Neptune retrograde in Pisces. So I talked a little bit in our last tea chat on Patreon, which I hope you guys signed up for. I did a video on it. I talked about the hysteria and the lunacy that we can encounter during Cancer season, which we're just about to come out of Cancer season as this video is going out. But you should really be able to connect something as Neptune has gone retrograde, or is stationary during the Cancer season. Okay. So connecting to Pisces, we really should be very aware by now, with the sun having been in Cancer and connecting to stationary Neptune in Pisces. It should have naturally kind of clicked into place, like our problems, okay, our emotional issues. Like, whoa, I now realize that it's not that I can't find a relationship. It's not that I can't have love in my life. It's that I won't put myself out there. Like, really getting back to the clarity, and hopefully things have become a little bit more clear about your overarching emotional cycles as a person, because this retrograde will not really help to clarify it, but it will help to finally do what it takes to overcome it and progress out of it by the time this goes direct at the end of this year. I think it's also important not to rely too much on any type of escape to Neptune, and Pisces are both all about how we escape certain realities, or how we escape or run away from certain dynamics. I think that it's better to be more executive with things. So if you're trying to escape something, why not just quit it altogether? Okay. If you're trying to just run away from something, why not just actually close the door so that you can run away and open a new door, so that you're not like running into closed doors all the time. That is an image that I see, is a lot of like running away from a certain open door just to see that there are a lot of other closed doors, because we've not closed the door that we're running away from. So closing doors does give you a key. You close a door, you have a key to a new open door. There's a lot of those types of transactions, those type of spiritual essence-based transactions happening this season of Neptune retrograde in Pisces. And it's not bad, it's not like wrong, but you have to kind of watch out for relying too much on that as well. Like, watch out for the doors that you open now to, like, are they what they seem? Are these new ideas and new artistic development, new patterns? Those probably are not wrong in any way, but they should have some type of context to where you've been visualizing for a long time, or what you've wanted, because it is really important to actually pursue what you've wanted, or to pursue what you've been visualizing for a while, because it's not good after this transit concludes. So by the end of this year, it's not good to not have moved toward a certain visualization, or not having moved toward a certain want, because I feel like if we don't move toward wants, or if we don't start to follow through on desires, we're not going to see the futility of them. Okay. And that's an interesting way to put it, but like, we kind of like trick ourselves up sometimes with the things that we want in life, and it's either right or it's wrong. Okay. It's either right or it's wrong. And if we don't ever pursue it, or if we don't ever try it, we can never know that it was wrong. So we can always become very angry with ourselves for not pursuing things, when we just needed to go out on a limb and either have it go well and have it be right, or have it be wrong and conclude it and return to a sense of, ease in our lives. So that's probably the main dynamic actually of this retrograde, is will we kind of move towards the desires and understand whether they're right or wrong, or will we keep to ourselves and stay wanting things but not letting ourselves do those things, and generating a lot of energy for nothing. Okay, watch out for that for sure. Anyway, so that's kind of feeling like the main collective ideas of Neptune retrograde in Pisces. Very mundane messages for that real quick before we go house by house. So don't repress your emotions purposefully, okay? Try to not hold things back. Try to not, keep yourself away from certain feelings. You need to feel the whole spectrum of what is natural at this time. And also any types of nightmares, anything that is so you're dreaming. Neptune is the planet of dreams. And whether this is a sleeping dream or, a waking dream, they really can become nightmares with Neptune retrograde. So certain things that you've always wanted coming true and kind of being a little bit of a nightmare, not really being what you thought it would be, very possible, extremely, extremely possible in all of the retrogrades of Neptune for the next 3 years. So we have to work with that in mind. Like, am I moving towards like a nightmare? Am I moving? Because we can really actually know that a lot more than we know. But also, if you've been very successful and if you've done what was authentic and really made yourself more healthy physically, it's like a wonderful, wonderful dream that you don't want to wake up from perhaps throughout this time. So it just depends, and you can really have a lot more autonomy than in choosing that. So let's talk briefly about this transit through each house. So how to know which house Neptune is transiting in your chart? Well, you just need to know your birth time and go to any astrology chart generating site and put in your information, and you can just find whichever house in your chart Pisces rules over, and that will be the house that it's transiting. So just super brief, sort of generalized things for each house. So first house, Neptune retrograde, June 23rd to November 28th. You want to be really aware of how this transit is affecting your appearance and your physical body. Okay, are you losing track of your physical body, your physical form? Are you visualizing yourself being very different, like having different hair, having a different physical shape, anything like that? How can we make that more real in a healthy way? Anything that has to do with changing the physical form, changing the body through diets or through eating disorder or through anything along these lines has to be very monitored and very seen. And also any type of therapy or psychological assistance for any type of eating disorder or body dysmorphia or anything like that is really important to be seen, because that would be the more difficult channeling of this. But positively, with Neptune retrograde in the first house, it's kind of one of the harder houses actually to have Neptune retrograde in, because it's still a little bit young. It's a very youthful energy for it. So you could be accomplishing many more artistic things than you're aware of. Like your life could be a bit of a artistic, picture, actually. It could be like a painted, piece of art, actually. So journaling or taking a lot of pictures might be good just to get the bigger idea and the bigger emphasis coming through. There's something a lot bigger than what you realize going on in your life, so you'd want to keep track of that in an intuitive way. Neptune retrograde in the second house. So you're going to need to keep a strict eye on finances. You could spend way more than you bargained for. You could get not enough value for your time, and also you would want to distance yourself from people who need things from you. So people wanting loans, people wanting money, people wanting what you have, okay? People wanting to stay at your house, people wanting to be around you, people wanting to eat your food all the time, it's a leeching energy with Neptune in the second house retrograde. So with this transit, you'll really clear that up. You'll maybe, cleanse your body, or maybe there's, maybe you could even be leeching yourself a little bit, not giving yourself enough food, not giving yourself enough nutrition. And you'd see that the people in your life are that way as well. They're wanting your money, they're wanting your house, they're wanting to be around you, they're wanting to, watch your TV all the time or something like that. Like sort of like a bum, like people are like bumming off of you potentially with Neptune retrograde in the second house. So just what that means is that your body is not getting enough as well. So flipping that around, cutting ties with people who are bums, and giving your body more is the way to work with that transit. So Neptune retrograde in the third house. Communications are clear. This is like a Mercury retrograde for this entire transit, actually. It's not, again, this is a tougher house for it to be retrograde in. Really watch out for what you're communicating to people. You might be very frivolous with your communication, or you might be saying things that people are concerned about. You might make jokes, or you might explicit jokes or something that people really take the wrong way. I feel this transit to be very politically correct. So if you're operating outside of any type of political correctness, you could have a lot of problems with this transit. It's a very magnifying glass transit. You're really looking at it. People are really looking at everything that you say, maybe. And why that's why you feel that like you're being observed so much, or that people aren't giving you any breaks, is because your speaking is meaning to be refined right now. It's meaning to actually show you any of the holes in your communication. So are you misconjugating verbs? Are you speaking with poor grammar? Again, this is the Pisces Virgo axis. It's really hoping that you get more clear and more concise. An interesting transit for a comedian, actually. Could you actually be a comedian instead? Could you actually work with humor more in a way, instead of like placing it in odd places? So also with Neptune retrograde in the third house, issues with siblings, issues with the relationship between like brothers and sisters, or uncles and aunts, things like that could become unclear. Okay. So what do I mean by that? It's like, I feel that there's like sibling rivalry, also like uncles and aunts becoming like mothers or fathers as well. And kind of like mothers and fathers becoming uncles and aunts. There's a weird kind of, this is a weird one for the third house. It's like Neptune retrograde in the third house in Pisces. It's probably the not the hardest one, but it brings up the most like constancy of this transit, because the third house is about constancy. It's about what we see all the time. It's Mercury's house. It's every moment. So that any transit through the third house makes it more mundane. Also the sixth house. Those two houses make any transit of outer planets like everyday type of issues within every moment, every communication. So just take it easy. What a great time to maybe like, I don't know, go off the grid, or, have a beach house, or be out in the woods being more solitary. I would not be too involved with like all social experiences all the time with the Neptune over these next few months. This is not a time to be out of the house all the time, being social all the time, being connected all the time. And if you are, and if that's what you have to be, what an incredible transformative time of your life. So moving on, Neptune retrograde in the fourth house. Oh my gosh, I hope that you, this is an emotional one for this transit, because Neptune's retrograde in Pisces. So very, very emotional aspect to have. Emotional transformation. Family history becoming different. Okay, so considering your family differently now. Kind of like the third house transit, an issue with like what is a sibling, parental, or like uncle and aunt relationship. I see that kind of bleeds over into this house as well. Also like the deepest point of a relationship, maybe the climax of a relationship, the peak of a relationship, now starts to break. So a relationship that's gone past its time would break off with that transit. Anything that's gone past its time, fourth house is also a time house. A really strong erosion of time, a really strong erosion of anything unsecure or unstable. So if there's a insecurity within, or lack of stability within, that would just start to kind of break off. So you could have, again, psychotherapy, finding a good therapist, finding a good astrologer, finding a good person to work with to become stronger, okay, to become more resolved internally, and to become more fond of yourself. I think this is a great transit to understand your better points and seeing how they might not really be grabbing a lot of attention or nurture, and to really switch that up. Lots of switching with this transit, lots of new ways of spending time, new ways of relating to people for sure over the next few months. Neptune retrograde in the fifth house is probably quite a bit more fun than the other houses. You might actually be, out with people, or you might actually be mingling around upper society or something, or you might be connecting with people that you've never connected with, playing games, rolling dice, something like that. That's kind of what I feel with this transit. It's kind of like a kind of a carnival feeling, where your own mundane experiences of life become a bit of a carnival, or become very artistically empowering. What a great transit to take your art to the next level. This is definitely one of the more artistically activating houses to have this transit in. So really cool, really beautiful. Also, I would say relationships with children. For those of you who have children, you'd want to really make sure that you're meeting your children empathetically, that you are understanding the emotional context of your children's lives, that you are seeing your children as well and not kind of ignoring them by any chance. More time with kids if you have kids. More time, okay? If you don't have kids, dating, okay? So dating, or more relationships. I'm feeling like this is probably more of a single person's transit. If you're coupled with this transit, wow, you're really going to learn something that you didn't know about this other person that you're with, but you'll really be able also to change your own game through seeing them in a different way. So it's kind of not about you with this transit in the 5th house. Like I feel like with after coming past the 4th house, with this transit happening in the 5th house, like you've kind of got yourself figured out more than you realize actually. And now it's about it's just about seeing the other people that are around you, and is that what you want, and can you give more time to it, the commitments, anything like that. It can be marriage as well, like and then you get married, and then you have like the white picket fence, and you have like kids and all that kind of stuff. So all that stuff is seen in the 5th house. So you want to really pay attention to that, because those things could become blurry. Neptune retrograde in the 6th house. Okay, we really got to keep an eye on the health. We got to, I'm talking like get it all together. So if you've been putting off that trip to the doctor, if you've been putting off that trip to the naturopath or the holistic healer, anything like that, it's time to do it now. Because I would say you want to really get a lot more clear on your health. If your health is feeling good, congratulations. You don't need to think about it. Don't fix what's not broken, because you can also get a little bit OCD about health. Don't fix what's not broken. That's like the moral of Neptune retrograde in the 6th house. What is broken? It would be really great with this transit to just like get your, just start thinking differently about what's broken, what's not broken, what's okay. You don't want, if everything's kind of at a state of being okay, not perfect, but everything's okay. It's important to know that this transit is trying to catalyze you into starting something new, or into raising up on the horizon. So maybe entering into a more lofty profession, or performing or being seen by other people. Not yet, but in the near future. That's why you don't want to go too crazy with, fixing a lot of mundane things in your life if they're not broken, because you might kind of miss the invitation from the universe to take things to another level. So that's kind of what this transit is preparing you for, is to take something to the next level. And that's why your health has to be good, in order to be that performer, or to be that, that politician, or to be that rock star, whatever it is. You have to be good when it comes to health. So if you are good when it comes to health, you can kind of start pursuing those things, get into the studio, start, making videos or something like that. But if the health isn't good, we've got appointments to make. We've got to be getting the blood done. We've got to be getting on the right diet. We've got to be really getting in a firm sleep schedule, because putting Pisces into Virgo's house makes things very unintuitive. Actually, where things just need to be simple. They need to be laid out. You need to be sleeping at the same exact times every day with this transit. You need to be eating at the same times. You need to be entertaining at the same times. You need to be practicing and rehearsing things at the same times. Really, really important to time slot things, okay, with this transit. Because if you don't, let's just say you take everything as you want it. So you wake up whenever you want, you work when you want, you rehearse when you want, you entertain when you want. Basically, you would come out on November 28th being exactly where you are right now. So it's just important to see that with this retrograde, there's a bit of a transformation with where you're at. And especially then by 2024, you would want to then like be the rock star, or be the politician, or be whatever it is that you want to be, So just keep that in mind, that you are really building up, because 4 years sounds like a long time away, but 4 years is not that long when it comes to getting your health together, when it comes to healing your relationship with time. Like it's enough time. It's still enough time. And that's, I feel like, for the 6th house transit of this Neptune retrograde in Pisces, it's like, you've still got enough time. Like you can still do it, you can still do all these things, but it's got to start getting there, at this point in time. So Neptune retrograde in the 7th house. I would not start any contracts. Okay. So I wouldn't get married, at this time. I wouldn't, start the new business. I wouldn't incorporate. I wouldn't, actually monetize anything right now, I would enjoy love right now if I could. If I were having a transit like this, this is not the house that it's transiting for me, but what I would definitely recommend against is putting anything in writing in this time. So making a will, making a, any type of directive or executive idea about the functionality of a business or your life or like any type of agreements or anything like that is not the time for a Neptune retrograde in the 7th house at all. So you'd want to wait until after November 28th to go crazy. Now, if it's already done, like that's that. And sometimes karmically, that's what happens is you sometimes do things at the worst possible time, and it ends up maybe going really well, or you just get even stronger through doing that. But I would just focus more on, again, health, because we've just come from the 6th house. So when Neptune goes retrograde in the 7th house, it's kind of like, okay, the health should be really good. You should not be having any complaints at all about, digestive issues or, any type of like nervous mentality, anxiety, insomnia. All those things should be things of the past or just not here at all. If they are there at all, that is the focus, okay? It's not about the business. It's not about lofty ideas. It's not about anything. It's about getting the health of the body in order. Because if you don't have a good body health, 7th house energy, it's catastrophe basically. So it can be a really beautiful time though to actually get that together. That's probably the most rewarding thing. And otherwise, just maybe enjoy a new relationship. Okay, maybe make a garden or have houseplants or something that you kind of have to nurture at all times, and you can kind of measure your own progress alongside maybe the growth of flowers inside your house or something. It has to kind of be simple like that. I think that this transit in this house is one of the harder ones as well. So just keep things simple. No need to legitimize or officialize or anything like that. So Neptune retrograde in the 8th house. Let's talk about that. No one's gonna understand. Okay, no one's going to give you what you need right now because nobody sees the situation that you're in. So Neptune retrograde in the 8th house, it's really not one of the harder ones. This is, I think, actually one of the better houses to have it in, because you're not looking a mess like a lot of people do with the Neptune retrograde transit in a more obvious house, but there's still turmoil. This is probably the transit of turmoil, actually, where there's where nothing really feels perfect or nothing really feels together, but also nobody sees that. Okay, so it's a completely hidden, a completely esoteric idea of imperfection and turmoil, where nobody gets it, nobody will understand, nobody will be able to empathize or sympathize with why this abundance that you have or why this benevolence that you have is actually risky or not right or just something that's not really of your essence. I think that the worst case scenario with this transit is just continuing in some kind of structure that is not right, just over and over and over again. It's repetitive. Also, I would say anything that deals with sexuality or dating or any type of desperation. Watch out for any type of desperation, okay? Because I do, with the 8th house, putting Pisces into the energy of the 8th house, that can be desperation for a lot of people. And anything. It's not just relationships, but I'm desperate for money, or I'm desperate for love, or I'm because here's the pain of the 8th house and Neptune retrograde in Pisces. It's kind of a bit of a martyr energy, actually. Or it's sort of a Catholic that is on their knees so much that their knees are now fractured and the skin is worn off. But again, they're wearing pants, so nobody ever sees that, and maybe people think that they're actually atheists or something. That would be, to me, be the symbol of this transit. Is the Catholic who has fractured knees being termed an atheist by outsiders. So you could apply that to anything. It's a kind of a religious jaunt also to this transit, where you might have religious turmoil, or you might have financial turmoil as well. No debts, okay? No taking on of new debts during this time at all, okay? None. Kind of like the 7th house we just talked about, where you don't want to be signing things, officializing things, or just keep things tried and true, I would say. And if it's come to a point where you have to like sign something, or you have to like make a business, or you have to make things more official, you want second opinions in every way. You want people who are more surface level to make things legitimate for you. What else would I say for this transit? Healing. Okay, healing with this transit, very potently healing energy. Especially, and I mean, the entire transit of Neptune and Pisces is like, yeah, you can totally like rejuvenate your soul, okay? Rejuvenate your core, rejuvenate a certain depth of yourself that nobody else is going to see, okay? So it's not a transit to rely on others, not a transit to look for sympathy from others, not a transit to look for like a group of people where we like are relating and we're sitting in a circle and we're all talking about, what it's like to be, the spouse of an addict or something. And if you did that, maybe if you went to like, I mean, it's not a bad transit actually to solve addictive cycles, getting into AA, going to some kind of addiction counseling, psychotherapy. For a certain type of person, it would work, but during the retrograde, I would say that you might go to that and it might feel like very unsympathetic, or you would talk about it, but then somebody else would start talking. Like you'd start telling your story in the circle, and then somebody else would then start telling their story, and then everybody would really like fawn over that story, and people would start like skipping over you or something. You would feel excluded. So there's an exclusionary thing with this transit. Like you might be excluded, you might be outcast, you might be beneath other people as well, okay? Or either so far beneath or so far above that there's not a lot of relativity in any circle. So it's a solitary transit. And that has to be okay. It's very empowering in a way too, like also very artistic. So incredible to finally get it out of you, any type of artistic blockage. So kind of a cool transit though. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like that one. This is probably one of the better houses for it to be in, honestly, because you're not fostering your power in other people. Like it hurts. There's something painful about this transit, but it's like also like super, super empowering. And the entire 13 years of this full transit is very empowering. So Neptune retrograde in the 9th house. Yeah, let's talk about that. Wow, motivation. Like, oh my gosh, I want to have that position. Oh my gosh, I want to travel the world. Oh my gosh, I want to be the archaeologist, or be the, like, what am I going to be? Like, who am I? Again, identity issues with this one. And the phyllis, like sort of a dogmatic type of identity, actually. Religious extremism, hardcore activism, radical changes, things like that with this transit. Again, religious conformity or religious ideations, where some kind of like social structure becomes like a religious structure, but it's not seen as that. So dogma, demagogic figures, anything like that, worshiping a certain cultish mentality without realizing it, being subscribed to somebody on YouTube and actually kind of letting them be too strong of a presence in your life or something like that. Like there's sort of a figure, like there's an idolization with this transit for sure. So watch out for any idolism. So a rock star or a pop star or, an influencer or something like that, becoming like too important in your life or becoming too much of a figure. So become your own figure with this transit. Like let yourself be your own example. Let yourself be your own respite instead of building up all these other people. Okay. Also, this is a very egoic transit. So anything dealing with the ego will be very emphasized, very illuminated, very highlighted. So a great time to no longer be held back by the ego. An awesome time to gain a new philosophy about time, money, and energy and ego, and how you're actually getting stronger. How maybe you really enjoy these, these new releases from your favorite pop star. But what are you doing while you're listening to them? Are you depriving yourself while you're listening to this music that you really like? Or are you depriving yourself while you're praying or something? Like it's important to be consuming something like healthy. So better diets, better exercising while you're listening to this pop star or something like that. Watch out with this trans, okay, that this is actually probably one of the only like dangerous houses to transit, where like a pop star or a figure or a famous person or someone that you've idolized can start to take so much of your time that it's like a toxic vampiristic experience. So build yourself up. Okay, I would turn off the technology with this transit. I would start running. I would start a new exercise regimen. I would start eating like spicy foods. Anything that's like a wake up call. I'd start drinking like strong coffee, perhaps. Not for everybody, because you don't want to like get your heart going too fast. But like the heart, you got to feel the heart with this transit, because it's not because the Neptune in Pisces is very cold. The ninth house is very warm, so it's kind of like a melting, steamy energy where it's like a sauna is nice, but you don't want to be trapped in the sauna, you know? So that's kind of what I feel with that transit. Neptune retrograde in the 10th house. Okay, simple. Good placement for this. This is a good one. If it's near your midheaven, especially like so 9th, 10th house cusp, watch out for your reputation. Don't do anything, okay? If there's anything that you are tempted to do right now that has an impact negatively on your reputation. So like, I might just have that affair now, or I might just, start anything that's a bit dangerous, a bit scandalous, or a lot dangerous or a lot scandalous, will have devastating impact. Okay, so the transit like this of Neptune retrograde over the midheaven is like, just like this theme we've been talking about through the 8th and 9th house. Listen to both of those. We have a sense of power and empowerment and working with a lot. Okay, working with collective, working with religion as well, or source or God energy, connecting to those things, philosophies, ideas. And then when that crowns at the 10th house, it can kind of get out of hand, and now we have this power. We're like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to do that risky thing because I can attract that in. And then that's where like the press is outside, figuratively. And maybe for some people it actually is, where the press, if you can imagine being like a celebrity, because that's kind of what this transit actually also indicates, is some amount of like fame or celebrity. If you can imagine the press only being present at the worst times, it's good to think that way. So even if you don't have any type of celebrity or any type of fame, think in those terms. Like, if there were a bunch of cameras, like there are everywhere, where I'm going to do this, would that really make me look good? How would that impact my reputation? Because the great thing about this transit is it's not really going to hit you at a very personal level, but it is going to maybe transform your reputation or transform your public appeal, or because the 10th house is about reputation and public appeal, and status, okay, and wealth. So watch out for no big financial transactions, okay, like probably not the time to buy that house or anything like that, okay? But overall, it's not really that personal, it's like, I don't think that you'll have any huge personal problems with this transit, but it's like reputation building. So why not do something that's really great for your reputation that's also authentic, Why not? Okay, Neptune retrograde in the 11th house. So this is dealing with society, groups of people, group mentality, group think, group ideation. So you might become a member of a group, okay? You might really identify with some like new socioeconomic idea, some new political idea, or some kind of movement. And you would really want to, again, make sure that you're not losing your own identity within that. Because again, this transit is all about building identity. So kind of like the 5th house, because this is the 5th, 11th house axis. This deals with romance as well. Relationships, what we get from relationships, how relationships change our reputation and identity. The 5th house is not like that, but as we've passed the 10th house now, in the 11th house, our relationships will change our socioeconomic status. They will have an impact on our reputation and probably our idea of philosophies or politics as well. So really important to understand any subtle changes of politics, or any subtle changes, or actually long-running changes over the last 13 years of how you've identified like socioeconomically or politically. And is it really right? Is it actually you speaking, or is it more of the type of demographic that you've fallen into speaking? It's important to really separate the individual self from the public identity with the 11th house transit of Neptune retrograde. And more personally, How can you start to be more inventive in your own life? Like, I think the 11th house, being that it rules Aquarius, is all about what an individual can create. So is there too much reliance on a type of concept and not enough injection of personal innovation into your own creative capabilities? So definitely fostering creativity, okay? Don't even worry about other people, okay? Worry about what you've wanted to create for all this time, because I feel like there's a lot of energy of personal creative capacity that can be wasted with this transit if you can't focus on yourself at all, and it's all about like other people and other people's journeys and stories. So interesting. Also, I would watch out just for any again, reputation. I like listen to the 10th house segment because it's similar. So the reputation changing up. Are you favorable with the important people in your life? Like, do you have a favorable reputation to people who are important to you? Are you afraid of the power of other people over you? Is so connected to other people. Okay, so again, like I said with the 10th house transit, what a great time to do something that gains like favor, that is authentic for you and integrity based. Like, why not volunteer at that soup kitchen, or why not support some kind of charity, or those aren't really quite it either with this transit, but like, I don't know, something just needs to be, and it's like not obviously not about like doing charity for the appeal of charity, but like things that you actually care about, okay, causes that you find important and feel an integrity connection to. So Neptune retrograde in the 12th house. Let's talk about that. The strongest, for sure, house to have this transit in, because that makes it a triple Pisces. Neptune rules Pisces. It's in Pisces. 12th house is Pisces house. So triple Pisces injection. Mental health, emotional health, our connection with the energy of death. Like, are we afraid of death? Do we think about death often? Are we sleeping well? Any of these minor ideas of death, having breakups, having endings, having a chapter ending, as that is a form of living death as well, having relationships break down, anything like that. It's really important with this transit to understand the beauty of that and understand what new doors have opened. I talked earlier in the video about how there's a lot of essence that we can discover by closing a door and moving towards another closed door and opening it with our own ability. So it's really important for this transit to open some new doors, to connect with new people, and to feel like you are not held back by structures. You can actually really, with this transit, sort of swim between the structural ideas of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto in Capricorn. And you can ultimately heal any confinements or restrictions or constrictions that you've experienced in the past. So this retrograde will really just illuminate anything that was like trapping you or confining you, or making you feel unsturdy because of some inaccessibility. Okay, so more accessibility, actually. It's kind of like a double negative, having Neptune retrograde in Pisces in the 12th house, where all the other houses restrictions, where we saw, like an emotional turmoil, or we saw an emotional blockage. It's more the other way around with this transit, where it's an opening, okay, or it's a clearing of a blockage, because the Neptune and Pisces energy has just become so concentrated that it kind of actually acts as its own facilitator of healing what it represents. So any type of represented healing in your life, having that healing space, having available to you many different healing structures. So having your house in order, having good food in your house that is good for your body, making sure that you remember your body is vital with this transit. It's easy to kind of forget the body, or it's easy to be so out of body or so connected to sleep or dream space that you could actually see a bit of like decay or a bit of wasting of the body if you weren't careful. So you got to really be tuned in to maybe taking the supplements and eating enough and staying healthy with this transit, because it's so soul oriented and so in the mind that we can kind of lose track of our physical form. But if we can really rise to the occasion of overcoming some of these old spiritual issues and some of these old emotional traumas, the body will become very much in conjunction with the ethereal, highly elevated potential of this transit. So it's incredible to see like scars healing on the body, perhaps for some of you too, and old wounds healing, so arthritis healing, or something like a chronic autoimmune disease healing. There's an opportunity for this, and over the next 4 years to have like a very strong healing in that way. So very, very neat to see. So anyway, everyone, I think that's going to conclude my speech on Neptune. I usually don't go through all the houses, but I just felt like I wanted to because this transit is so out there by itself, in Pisces. Everything else is kind of grouping up, so I just wanted to talk about it and give it a lot of attention because it went into the third decan of Pisces, which means the last 10 degrees of Pisces before it retrograded. So it's entering new territory of that mundane and macrocosmic transit that we're having. But I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications to get these videos when they come out in the future. We're getting so close to a really cool area of subscription, so I would so appreciate it if you've been watching, or if you enjoyed the video, if you'd hit the subscribe button. It would make my day. This video has just hit an hour, so it's a huge amount of free content, which I'm so happy to be putting here on YouTube for you. And I hope you have good luck with this transit. It will be lasting for nearly the rest of 2020. So let's buckle up and prepare for Neptune retrograde in Pisces. And if you wanted to support this channel at another level, you can definitely check the description box below. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or you can sign up for Patreon as well and support this channel further and receive plenty of other bonus content over there, like weekly tea chats, early ad-free access to general readings, extended readings, and more, which I will link in the center of the screen, in the center of the video now. So thank you so much, everyone. We will be talking soon. Be sure to jump over to Patreon and check that out. And otherwise, hit the thumbs up button, like this video, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a joy. I'll talk to you later. Bye.